You're here, which means that you've found spirit crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Hello and welcome back to another Cosmic Energy Report. I'm Emily from Emily and Her Stars and Things That Make You Go Woo.
And I'm Andrea from Concrete and Crystals and Spirit Crumbs.
We're so excited to have you back. It is time to record Gemini season, and full disclosure, it is definitely still Taurus season as we're recording. In fact, the worst of the Taurus transits that were expected, sort of the flashpoints, if you were, are still yet to come. So we don't have a lot to report on how Taurus season treated us all. 16, 17, 18, 19 are still probably our rockiest days. And we're recording this on the 11th. So TBD, to be determined.
Yes, I feel like the time has been moving, but nothing has been moving with it. I get the feeling of like an old school thing where I'm sitting still and like the moving picture is moving in front of me and I'm just watching it, but like I'm not moving with it. It's sort of more of an observing thing. Like I just feel like I'm anticipating these transits of actual flashpoints and hopefully some movement. So I feel like Taurus has been pretty steady. There's been stuff happening, things coming up, but I haven't seen a whole lot of movement myself.
Yeah. And we've had, Mercury is finally in Taurus, which love. But Mars doesn't hit Taurus. So it feels, I keep talking to people that are like, what is happening? It feels weird. I can't put my finger on it. And I think you and I we always go to our car references, right? It's very much the feeling of foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. Like the engine is revving so fast and the brake is like even the emergency brake is on at this point. There's nowhere we're going. And that's what it feels like. It's just electric and static. And someone said, what does it get better? And I was like, 2027? Kind of want to whisper, like maybe there'll be some relief in August, but then we get Venus retrograde. So yeah, no, just tell your nervous system this is the new normal for a while.
Yeah, I feel like we have to be in training mode where it's like we're in some sort of a reinforcement situation now where it's like reinforcing whatever is working, whatever does feel good, figuring that part out, and then just assuming that we are just going to be sort of observing a bunch of changes for the next while. And if you can keep yourself still and grounded in whatever has been working for you, I feel like that's all we can do at this point. And I think we've been well trained. If we think about it, we've been doing this together for probably 4 or 5 years now. We've been getting through COVID with this. I just feel like expect the unexpected, unprecedented energy. We are well informed in how we all react to these things now. And I think if we can just kind of convince ourselves that we can deal with it, that it is okay. We've gotten through the last 5 years, the last almost 6 years now at this point, I guess it is. Um, I think, yeah, all we can do is just sort of hang on and keep doing each small thing that comes to us. That Knight of Pentacles that we had sort of reinforced in the last while, where it's like, keep doing the things that you know are going to move you forward, even if you don't get to see the results, as Emily and I know we're having a whole conversation about before this. But I think it is sort of grounding if you can do that for yourself when everything else is a little bit wild and maybe untamed.
We talked a lot last year about being in the liminal, and I've been reading this wonderful book by Heather Ensworth. I'll drop it in the show notes because if I tell you the title right now, I'll totally butcher it. But basically, it has to do with the precession of constellations across the horizon, at particularly summer solstice, spring equinox, and those marker points that we know so many civilizations before us have marked, the age of Aries, the age of Taurus, the age of Gemini and Cancer and Leo and all these things. And one of the things that they were talking about, and Heather, even on her YouTube channel, is that we are in between Aquarius taking over from Pisces as the new constellation on the horizon. And there's a recognition there that we are in the liminal, and the ancients used to really honor this space of the in between where anything was possible, and it was meant to be a time of imagination and dreaming and thinking of the potential and trying to come up with what the best possible version could be. Because of course, once the actual time and dynamics got here, then it was time to take action. And I've really been sitting with that the last few weeks because I think and I take full credit as doing this as well. Part of the astrology is like, well, it's just temporary. Like it's fine. It'll be normal again in 6 weeks. And so much of what we're experiencing right now is bigger than that. This is not, it's going to be better in 6 weeks or 6 months. It may be 6 years. And to keep that beginner's attitude, that, a little bit of a fool, a little bit of I don't know where it's going, but I'm going to have to lean into trust, which also, as two earth signs, we've said many times, not a fan. Really much prefer some concrete evidence where this is headed. But there is something to be said about taking the literal translation of what the constellations and stars are telling us of it's simply a liminal in between, hold your breath kind of time.
Yes, as earth signs navigating this, it's a frustration. I think that's why we feel that stop and go at the same time so much, because as much as, earth signs, we plan and we like to have our, our plan ahead of us, our map, our GPS setup, whatever. So we do need that time for planning. We do need time in the in between for things. I think we're not go, go, go all the time. But I think it gets to a point where it's like, okay, I have the plans, I have the materials, I know what I need to do. It's just waiting for some outside element to like come into place, I think is always the hardest part. I think for anybody, not just for earth signs. I think we just feel it more like physically in our bodies. I think that's one thing about being an earth sign is like, I know for myself, I feel things in my body a lot when I'm frustrated or when I'm trying to figure something out rather than in a hypothetical way. Like my body will physically be telling me I need to do something right now. Um, and I think that's something that is coming forward a lot right now in this particular period. And I think because we were talking in Taurus season, if we remember, how we have this 6 week period where it's a little bit quiet, there's not a lot going on. And it seems like a great idea, like a break from all of the madness, but also like, I don't want to just have nothing going on. I want things to be happening. So as much as we were like, oh, thank gosh that we have this quiet period coming up, but then it's like we forget what that means. Are we actually good at resting? Are we good at giving ourselves space to be in the energy? And I think that's something that we are going to have to work on. Like we are saying, we are going to have to work on being in the liminal and leaning into that nervous system reset. We're going to have to start working on allowing ourselves space to rest. And I think if we look forward at like in a big picture way, I think humans in general are meant to have time to rest and connect and spend time together just for the sake of it and to create art and, have fun and do all those things. And I think what's happening is in these little periods where there's not a lot happening, that's what we're supposed to be doing with that time, is like filling it with things that make us feel good in our bodies and make us feel rested and excited and hopeful. All those human pieces of us that we haven't had time for. We've been in survival for so long, and some people probably longer than others. And I think that's where that liminal, like what Emily was saying, it's like we have to learn how to live in that space and how to honor it and appreciate that we might actually miss it at some point when we are busy again, when things are chaotic and we have no time to, even think at some point. But I think, yeah, it is something that we actively have to participate in, like just sitting and sort of being panicked and overthinking is not really helping us. And I think over the last 6 years, we've all done a lot of that. And I think now it's at the point where it's like, okay, I have to do something with this energy and figure out what that is, whether it's starting a club, starting a book club, starting an art therapy thing, like doing something that maybe helps you connect with others and not feel so alone in the liminal.
I've noticed a lot of people talking to, and I'm sure we'll bring this up even more in episodes going forward, but we have all of the planets have changed signs or will be. Jupiter is the last one, and don't worry, it's coming in July. End of June, even, I think. it will move into Leo. At that point, everything will be, all of the major outer long transit planets will be in fire and air and out of water and earth, where we have kind of gotten comfortable. We knew what to expect. Our nervous system knew how that energy worked. I think as humans, we have the same problems that we revolve around. We know how to work with them and live with them. We know what energies support it. We know what to expect from other people when they're, reflecting back to us or sharing their experiences. And it's like all bets are off. Everything has been turned upside down. It's like we're living in an upside down world. And so on top of it, our nervous systems are completely dysregulated because nothing that used to work is working anymore. And so I think that is an added level of frustration that people are starting to feel. And particularly in Taurus, where we want things to be slow and nourishing, and it's Mother's Day and the flowers are coming, and we were excited, yes, like you said, to have this little window of quiet opportunity. But then it's like, well, nothing's happening. It's not getting better. So let's get back to some action where at least maybe something will change. So let's talk about Gemini season. Are you ready?
Yes, let's do it. Let's jump in and talk a little bit about our a friend, the Gemini.
Oh, our friend, the Gemini. So Gemini is the last 30 days of spring. We had Aries, which is a kickoff. Taurus holds up the center tent pole with its feet. And then Gemini is over by the door. And he's already kind of looking at what else is coming. The sun is climbing to its highest point in the sky, which here in the Northern Hemisphere will be the Tropic of Cancer. So we will have the summer solstice coming rapidly, but we aren't quite there yet. So Gemini is considered a double-bodied sign, and not just because of the sign of the twins, but it holds aspects of the sign before it, Taurus, and the sign after it, Cancer. So it's in between. It understands that it has to be flexible and adaptable because it's letting go of the rigid Taurus ways, and it's interested and intrigued to become part of Cancer, but it can't fully embody it. So it's considered a mutable sign because of that flexibility and adaptability. And it's always aware that nothing is permanent, which can sometimes be the downfall or seen as a negative side of Gemini. But Gemini is here to learn. It's opposite Sagittarius. And this is where it's going to get really interesting this year because we've got Uranus now in Gemini. And Sagittarius is opposite. So Sagittarius is greatly being affected, just like Scorpio was with Taurus. Now we've got this next duality. And Sagittarius wants to believe. Taurus wants to think. So where Sagittarius collects all of these beliefs, almost like a gypsy, right? It's building a framework of meaning for its life. Gemini just likes to collect all the ideas with zero obligation to keep any of them. Like, oh, I changed my mind 20 minutes ago. Like, where were you? So if you were born with Gemini placements, right, you might have a previous life that really locked you into some sort of rigid dogma. And this time you're like, I'm not sticking to any of that. Like, I'm going to explore as many things as possible. So your job in this life is to really look around, find your sense of wonder, get curious, share it with others, because that can be really freeing for Geminis when they feel the pressure of needing to pick something and stick with it for the long haul. Now, the concept of the twins, that part goes way, way back. It's definitely at least Paleolithic and probably even earlier, and one of the oldest ideas in terms of mythology and what the constellations mean. We know that like in 20,000-ish BC, there was a mammoth hunter carving two Venus figures that were back to back. So one was, facing life and one was facing death. And we have a lot of these like duality in outlook, duality in belief. We also have, of course, as it moves through time, the idea of Castor and Pollux and Romulus and Remus. And there's even a Mayan hero twin sort of subset. So there's definitely something about this as above, so below, as within, so without, conscious, unconscious, body and mind. But there's always a duality somewhere at play kind of in the Gemini context. It's an air sign. It's the first air sign in the zodiac. And what it does is it connects the heart and the mind to consciousness and body. This is where we really get the wonder and amazement of everything that's around us, that unsatiable curiosity that Gemini holds. And it loves to ask, "Did you know about this? What do you think about this? Tell me everything." It's like almost a little ADD. I will say Gemini has that reputation. But that's also, if you consider maybe someone who has a more rigid or watery combination, who isn't willing to move through things so quickly, it can take them time to catch up. I happen to have a Gemini moon, so I'm a little familiar with this, that I can be in the middle of a conversation with my husband, point out a deer, tell him about a turtle I saw on a rock, and then circle back to the trauma I was telling about before. You just got to keep up. That's the trick. But this free association, it's not that Gemini is flaky or dishonest or any of those. Always feel bad that Gemini gets, that bad rap from pop astrology. But to me, they're moving at the speed of thought. It's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is the hottest and the coldest and the fastest. And it's always going quicker than almost you can keep up with. So it's more about Gemini being 10 steps ahead rather than doing something wrong or holding it against you or not keeping you in the loop. They just haven't caught up. You haven't caught up to their speed of thought yet.
Yeah, I feel like I've had people around me that have had Gemini energy for a long time. And I think it is sometimes interesting to see how they're perceived by other people. I mean, I have ADHD, so I do actually enjoy that energy, especially in conversation and like going from topic to topic. So I feel like I appreciate that part of Gemini's energy because there really never is a dull moment. If you're around someone who's a Gemini, they notice things you don't notice. They know random facts that you're like, how do you know that? How do you remember that? They know a little bit about everything. You could bring up almost any topic and they can be along for the ride. So I think it is true that there are qualities. I mean, every sign has shadow qualities or, light and dark, however you want to see it, has qualities that are more challenging to live with and to experience. I think we have to keep that in mind too. Like, even within a sign, you may know that you're frustrated in yourself with a certain part of yourself that has to do with, your placements or your astrology. So I think if we all, maybe in more of these collective years coming forward, start to acknowledge that, like, if we're feeling annoyed by other people, then perhaps we need to look at ourselves too. But I do think Gemini is a really interesting sign to be around. And I think going into Gemini season, when I was pulling the cards, I feel like we get a really good like whiff of that energy right off the bat. So, while if we remember where we left off in Taurus, from the 17th to the 19th, we had the Two of Cups, which is a lovely energy. It is connecting either with spirit or just with what resonates with your heart or another person who's really aligned with where you're going. And I think it's a really nice place to transition into the next season. And then with Gemini from the 20th to the 23rd, I actually pulled the Page of Wands, which is the card I refer to when I feel into Gemini energy, because the page is already like a messenger. So if we're thinking of Mercury, the messenger, bringer of energy, and the Page of Wands with having that fire energy to it, even though it's an air sign, the Page of Wands brings in the curiosity and the just level of openness to whatever comes into your awareness and then taking it and running with it. I think as much as we have, you know, the swords being the air sign, I think there's something about this part of Gemini and this part of the Wands energy where it's like taking it and running with it. Just as quickly as something comes in, you can actually take that and then do something with it. And I think sometimes that is what gets the bad rap because it's like, weren't you just doing something completely opposite last week? And it's like, yes, that's correct. I was. And now here we are. So are we going to keep talking about what I was doing, or are you going to come over and see this brand new thing I made? This new business that I started. Are you in or out? Like, I don't have time for this. Right. And I think sometimes we need that to break up the energy. Like what we were just talking about is how it kind of feels stagnant when there's not a lot happening. There's a lot of, I think sometimes it's sort of a balance where we need some time to like process things and integrate. Sure. But after a certain point, we tend to spiral if we have too much time without anything happening. And then it kind of takes us out of any momentum that we had. Whereas having something like this, it's bringing in new ideas, new connections, new interests. This is the time where if you have the time and there's not a lot on your schedule, maybe you're going down a rabbit hole of something super interesting. Maybe you're reading 10,000 books, watching a bunch of documentaries, like whatever it is that is giving you life of like, okay, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I want to find a way to integrate this into what I'm already doing. And I think it's a really important piece of the energy for the next while where yes, there's a lot of earth energy coming in the cards and stuff. There's a lot of stuff happening externally that's a little bit more fiery, but this is a way to really give yourself space to explore and to direct your attention and your energy towards something specific as opposed to just riding the wave of everything that's coming at us, like when it comes to media and social media and people around us having their own reactions to the energy and to the changes that are happening. I think there's something really interesting about having these few days right after we have a really soft sort of Two of Cups, lovely energy connecting, then taking that into a week where like there may be a lot going around you. But if you allow yourself to say, you know, I've really been dying to learn more about this or to find out, like go and visit a place you've been meaning to visit, whatever that means to you. I always see it like a little fairy, like with like sort of sparkly dust around it, where it's coming in out of nowhere with this idea that you get really excited about. And then you just take it and run with it for a little bit while you have the time. And I think there's something really interesting about starting Gemini season with that burst of energy.
I really like that that's the way it's going to come in because I feel very much like something is going to come to light 16, 17, 18, 19. We just have that Mercury trine Pluto, but square the node coming on the 19th. Mars is in Taurus, Venus again, Mercury is in Gemini. There's just ugh, Mars conjunct Chiron. There's a lot. There's just a lot of energy right there. And I feel like it's going to open something up, particularly before that second week in or that last week in May. So all that being said, as I kind of ramble, I do want to acknowledge that this Gemini season is going to be so different in so many ways. So we get the kickoff that feels normal and Gemini-ish. And oh yeah, but by the way, Uranus is here. So Gemini isn't going to be like Gemini for the next 7 years. It's going to be different all the way through. And I think I mentioned it last time. I still think the movie Dogma by Kevin Smith is fantastic for really capturing this idea between Gemini and Sagittarius. And one of the characters, Rufus, says, I think it's better to have ideas. You can change an idea. Changing a belief is trickier. And I think that's playing out on a global scale right now. I think we can see that everywhere, that people are having to change their beliefs in some way or another. So, of course, Sun into Gemini on May 20th. It's at about 8:37 p.m. That's Eastern Daylight Time here in the US. The 22nd, of course, the 21st is fine. The 22nd, let's come in with a bang. We have Venus square Neptune right away. Venus in Cancer is going to clash with Neptune in Aries, where this is going to make everything a little bit foggy. It's going to feel like it's warm and cozy, but that it's also going to be confusing and weirdly pushy. So if someone's like trying to charm you with maybe some of that Gemini intellect, or maybe they're telling you about this great new business they just built in the last 2 days and are you ready to invest? This is not a great day for snap decisions because that Venus square Neptune, everything's going to be a little bit of an illusion. So really, I would say don't trust media, but don't trust headlines. Kind of get the full story before you repeat anything. Next, on the same day, the Sun conjunct Uranus. So it moves right into Gemini and then pow. In a day, it meets up with Uranus at about 1.5 degrees. So this is big because when the Sun touches it, and particularly because it's happening now for the first time in Gemini, it's a little bit of a lightning strike in terms of genius or a shakeup or like this flash of insight. I just really encourage you again to stay flexible because at first it could look really great or may look scary or whatever it is, but it probably will be in disguise some way or another. So stay curious, be willing to switch gears. take everything the first time you see it as curiosity and don't jump to that Sagittarius belief if you can. And then on the 23rd, we have first quarter moon in Leo. Not a big deal, but Leo likes drama. So this has the potential energy to take anything that may have come up in the previous day or two and like put it on the center stage and make a bigger deal out of it than what it might actually be.
For May 24th to the 30th, we're switching back to Earth energy, but we have the 10 of Pentacles. And if we recall, we've had this come up a few times where I think now the way I'm interpreting it from lived experience now, having it come up a few times, is that like it typically is like you having what you dreamed of and in a tangible way. So having community and finances and satisfying work and all of those things come into play. Where I think sometimes now what it's telling us is that we need to take all of the little pieces that are coming in as proof that it is coming and that we are moving towards that. So some of us might actually be having really great big things happen. And I think that's true anytime this kind of energy comes up. Everyone is on I always see it like a sliding scale where it's from a scale of 1 to 10, how am I personally experiencing this? And how is the collective experiencing this? And so while we may only have maybe small things here and there, like little hints coming in, if we take time to sit with those and think, okay, what were the steps that I took to have this happen? That's sort of what Spirit is showing me is we have the Knight of Pentacles as a really big influence for Taurus season. That idea that, yes, he's doing the chop wood, carry water thing, right? Like that was a huge theme for us that really stuck with me. And I think if we keep in mind that that might mean that you're planting everything at the same time, but not everything takes the same amount of time to germinate. Not everything grows at the same speed, right? And so even if we all planted seeds the same day with the new moon, doesn't mean we're all going to see the fruits of that right away. Some of us might see it in the fall. Like we might have a huge harvest in the fall, but maybe we're only seeing little bits and maybe we're having to keep tending it and that sort of part of the process for the next few months. But we can still celebrate when the shoots come up. We can still celebrate when the flowers come out. We can still have those moments where we look around and say, you know what? I've actually done a lot of things that made this happen. And I think the fact that we have a lot of Earth coming this month, even though it's Gemini season, tells me that a lot of it is about us acknowledging ourselves. Being in your body, first of all, being really rooted in your own energy, but also saying, look, what did I do to create this outcome? And it might be a little bit of reverse engineering to be like, you know what? I actually went to somewhere that I don't normally go and I met this person, or I actually showed up at an event instead of last minute going, no, I don't want to go. It's not my thing. We might actually be able to point out some patterns. And I think, again, there's something about Earth signs where we like to have our lists and we like to have our map and our and all of the things. Yeah, like we all have our notes here in front of us. Like we have these things, but I think sometimes one of the things that we're also gifted at is spotting the patterns. The same with air signs. So I think that's where Gemini comes in, is Gemini has explored so many things that they can see patterns. And they're very much dot connectors. Like they can see where the dots connect, even though you might not traditionally connect certain things. They may seem very disparate to most people. But I have ADHD. So again, I sometimes resonate with that part of the energy where it's like I can connect things that seemingly from the outside, if I try to explain it to someone else how my mind went from point A to point B, it's actually point, Z7, because I've gone through that many rotations of things to get there. But I think if we start doing that in a more practical way, like, okay, I sold 3 of my prints this week. How did I do that? Well, actually, I've been talking to a lot of people about it. I moved where my spot is. I actually started doing work that resonates more with like what I enjoy doing. I stopped doing the work that just I thought was going to sell. I posted on Instagram more this week. Like, look at what you're seeing the results come up. Like, look at the results coming up and sort of backtrack and say, okay, what did I do to do that? And then I'll do more of that. And I think, again, in these times where we're sort of in the liminal, having something like that that's a little bit more tangible that you can move forward with can help you celebrate these moments more. Like when the 10 of Pentacles comes up, it's an objectively good card. And so, okay, where can I see evidence that things are moving forward? And again, we may not be staying with that energy for very long, but if we can at least direct ourselves towards something we can put energy into and we can sort of give ourselves a direction with, and I think we'll feel better about being in the liminal. And again, I think some people are going to have really big opportunities, really big successes come through. I just have a feeling everyone's going to be somewhere on that scale. We won't know until the energy comes. But I would say that there are going to be some people that are making some major changes. I can feel it in my body, like that there's going to be some major shakeups coming. But I think if we all keep in mind, if you're like, well, nothing's happening for me, everyone else seems to have all this stuff happening, and I'm just sitting here doing the same thing I did yesterday, then you're doing the Knight of Pentacles thing. You're doing the chop wood, carry water, and look at what you are doing, what you are seeing. And, let that move you forward because the momentum, as long as you keep moving, eventually something's going to push you forward. Something's going to come along and move you into that next part of the cycle.
I love that card. It's an interesting week because there's really only 2 days that have astrological transits, but they're massive. This is the next flashpoint of the rest of May. On the 26th, we have Mars square Pluto. So there's a tension, and both of them want to be in charge. And then at the same time, Saturn trine Pluto. So we have Mars square to it and Saturn trine to it. I'll try and break it down. It really is about power dynamics. Mars is in Taurus, is going to feel very stubborn. And Pluto is in Aquarius, so it's bringing, control issues to the surface. And they're fighting each other, basically, like who's running the show and who thinks they're running the show, which I think if we put this into political context or even global events, you can totally see at some point somebody is going to reach a breaking point. Like, is it over the US? Is it, Russia is right on the brink of breaking down at this point. We've got so many instances of this all across the world. So the tricky thing with the sun and Gemini is because it's also then in the supportive trine with Pluto on the same day. So it's Gemini has so many ideas, and it's like, well, Pluto, what about this? Or what about this? Or what about this? What if we break that down? And so it's going to be incredibly hard to tell the truth behind something. You might feel like things are shady or like you don't have the full story or that you're behind somehow and everybody else had the information. And this is the big part where it really resonated with that 10 of Pentacles is like, don't take the bait. You have to stay really patient. You have to let it unfold. And I've always said, don't let someone else's emergency constitute an emergency for me. So do what your gut is telling you and stick to your timeline. If you know, like you said, you've checked in with your body, you've checked in, you know what's working, what's not working, then the rest of that, it's going to play out on a global scene. How does it truly affect you day to day? And if you're fine, and if you watered your flowers and you had a cup of coffee, celebrate that. And don't worry, because there's so many other things that are going to happen. Like, give it 2 days, it'll change. Literally, the 28th, we now have Venus square Saturn. And this one, I think it's going to feel heavier. Like the 26th is very explosive, fiery-ish, bull in a china shop kind of energy. Venus square Saturn it's heart heavy because Venus at this point is in Cancer. It's catching up to Jupiter, but it's not that far yet. But it's at a 90-degree angle to Saturn in Aries, which is do everything the long, hard way. No, it's not. It's about being responsible, adulting up, which Aries doesn't always like. Aries is like, I just want to have fun. Let's go be naive. So it's like you are going to kind of look around and realize that nobody's noticing what's going on. Whatever you've been overextending yourself on, where have you been putting in that Saturnian responsibility? And you want to turn around and be like, but look at this shiny thing. Because that Venus in Cancer is like, how can you see me? How can you love me and bring me into your internal world? And everybody's like, yeah, kind of busy here. Don't really care. So before you get frustrated, I think really ask yourself, did you tell anyone what you needed? Like, did you say, I need you to look at this and tell me your thoughts or give me feedback? Or did you just show it to them and they were like, yeah, okay, great. Good job. Let's paste and stickers. Happy for you. People aren't mind readers. And so when it feels maybe painfully obvious for you, It's probably not on someone else's radar, and it's not their fault. We've all got a lot of things going on. So instead of letting any resentment kind of build up underneath that, just say the thing, right? It might be an uncomfortable conversation for a minute, or it might be longer than you wanted in your Gemini Mercury flightiness, but it beats walking away from something that could have really been easily fixed with just some clear communication. How that's going to play out globally, who's in charge? Stop overextending yourself in places where you don't need to. Weird week. Embrace that 10 of Pentacles.
That totally makes sense why it felt like it was gonna be, like, really intense and good for some people and then, like, hardly noticeable to other people. I feel like it's one of those weeks where it's like anything can happen. And it's really interesting because I wasn't really paying attention to what the cards were going ahead. I like to just jump in as blindly as I can, knowing what they are ahead of time. But from May 31st to June 6th, for that first week of June, when we're like solidly into the energy, we have the Nine of Pentacles. So we have the 10 and then the 9. And the 9 actually is tuning into a lot of the energy I was actually picking up in the 10 because the 9 of Pentacles really does lean more into your actual financial and career success, and it also is known as the card of being self-made, like what you have created. So even though that was sneaking in already in the energy I was feeling the week before, it makes sense. They're 2 weeks in a row. So it feels like it's one solid block of energy to me. And I think because there's the energy of the 9 in general being close to the end of the cycle, it's almost going backwards where it's like you get the hint of where you're going that keeps you moving forward, but you're still at that. We're not quite there, but you get to actually reap a lot of the benefits. So I almost feel like we're not going to feel the full effects of that 10 of Pentacles. Like we said, it's going to be like something we're hinted at, but we know we're close this next week because of actual financial or material things that come through. And again, reminding yourself that anything you do that comes from your own efforts, your own energy, your own chop wood, carry water, all the things you've been doing, that actually is amplified when you acknowledge it. So if you actually take that time to acknowledge, wow, even if you have to look at it from more of a nostalgia, I feel like everyone has the way that they connect with this energy best. So whether it's like a logical, well, I got from this point to this point because I did these steps, or if it's more of an emotional connection of, okay, what would my child self feel like if they saw me actually doing these things in my day to day? And then how can I readjust to do more of that? Again, still trying to keep yourself moving forward, but taking the time to be like, wow, I did this. This is coming in because of what I put out there. Even if you're working in a corporate job, you're still doing work every day. You're still being acknowledged by others. You're being seen by people. You're still working on projects. There's still ways that you're being seen. Again, that being seen energy that Emily was talking about, I think really comes into these couple weeks where everything is changing around us. And so it does make us feel a little bit insecure. And where do I fit? Like, where does my work fit? You know, where do I fit in this company? Where do I fit in this community? And I think that's why it almost feels more amplified when you actually do have something successful come through because you're like, wow, even though everything feels a little unpredictable, I'm still doing well. I'm still finding ways to be successful and fit myself into the right spaces at the right time. So as much as sometimes timing is something we don't have control over, and sometimes it is about connection more than it is about specifically what we're doing. I think that this week is a really great time where hopefully a lot of us will start to see material and tangible proof that what we're doing and the path that we're on is leading to that 10 of Pentacles, where everything is coming together in a way that we feel is fulfilling and exciting.
It's interesting because it feels like the bow on the package at the end of May because it's a full moon in Sagittarius, but it's a blue moon because we also had the full moon on the 1st in Scorpio. So here we are, a full moon in Sagittarius on the last day of the month. It's about 4:50 or 4:55 a.m. Eastern. It's trine Saturn and Aries. It's shining a spotlight essentially on what's working, what's not, what needs to go or what needs to get fixed. So if you've been running around in circles and feeling overwhelmed, this is like, what is working? What am I putting my time and my money and my energy into? And is it worth it? Because there's a difference between being like productive and, like you said, watering the seeds. And maybe I'm waiting till fall to harvest them. Or am I just watering dirt? Am I being reactive because I thought I should have done that and I didn't? So, not scattering your energy everywhere, really being conscious of where you're spending it. I think that's the big, big message with Sagittarius, because Sagittarius, right, it's back to beliefs. Of course, it's going to have that Uranian energy opposite. Where can I change what I thought I believed in? Really getting more in tune with your gut and trusting those gut instincts. Just because it feels like it should be meaningful, is it? I think we're going to have a lot of energy coming up in terms of changing beliefs that are not only things we've established, but things we've inherited, even from family, from society. Okay, on the first, Mercury moves into Cancer. So now it's joining Venus and Jupiter there. This is emotionally sensitive, and it's going to be there about 10 weeks because I'm hesitant to tell you there is a retrograde on the horizon at the end of June. So anything that starts coming up now, I would just pay attention to it, because when Mercury goes retrograde June 29th through July 23rd, it might revisit some of these situations. Be thoughtful about what you share, be careful oversharing, and don't let nostalgia pull you into places that make you feel grumpy, like, well, it's never going to be that way again, or I miss the way it was. And I think a lot of us are truly missing that. Like we were talking at the beginning, our nervous systems are craving that. That's what keeps us emotionally regulated, is having that connection to the past and recognizing how far we've come, remembering the good times. And I think some of us are having trouble even remembering the good times because it's like nothing has been normal since 2018, 2019. Use your words and those emotional connections to people to try and hype others up, give them a little bit of a boost, and don't use it to prove how tough everything is. You can use this energy in two different ways. And I just say, use the better of the two if possible. June 3rd, Mercury is then going to square Neptune, head versus heart. That's the easiest way to say this. Mercury in Cancer, it's that heart, and Neptune in Aries, it just wants to go. So it's like your internal GPS is like unplugged. I don't know where I'm going. I can't make a decision. You're just going to feel lost a little bit in it. One minute you might be feeling really responsible and I have a direction. And then the next you're like, forget it. I'm throwing the whole business I just made and had people invest in out because I'm done. And the thing is, both impulses will be right. It's just you have to kind of ride the wave. So if you're walking around in that fog, like just pump the brakes a little is what I would say. Notice that it's a fog and treat it as a temporary situation, not as this is how it's going to be forever. Again, holding that Nine of Pentacles, the grounded energy that says both can be true at the same time. We don't have anything else coming up until the 8th. So yeah, if like I always say the 10-10-10 test, will this matter in 10 minutes, 10 months, or 10 years? I think that's going to be a really good energy to use for a lot of Gemini season, but particularly this week in general.
That really feels like it fits in with the cards. And then kind of moving into this next week, I was saying to Emily before we started recording, I was not expecting this much solid earth energy coming. And this week, it's not a Pentacles card, but we have from June 7th to 13th, the Emperor. We have a major arcana coming in, and he has earth energy to me. He has a bit of a fire to him, but very grounded in his, I would say, confidence in his decisions and confidence in the world that he's built around him is the energy that I'm feeling. So if we look at this from like where we're experiencing the energy throughout this season in Gemini, we start out with that influx of curiosity and interest and moving forward and a spark to get us going again. And then we start to see results. We have a hint at what our big picture is going to look like and seeing maybe people or material things coming in. Last week, we had some sort of a financial or tangible thing telling us, yes, we're in the right way. And then I think the reason the Emperor is coming in so strong at this point is because he's not going to be shaken. If people around him are complaining or saying, why are you doing that? He's going to be like, I've been doing this for the last 3 weeks and I'm having results. So this is the way it is. And this is the way that I'm doing things. And if you don't see the vision, that's fine. But I do. And I'm going to keep going. And this is a major arcana. And we did have a few months where we were getting a lot of them, but we haven't been getting a ton. We get 1 or 2 every month now, here and there. But I feel like the Emperor in particular just has a very sturdy, like a 4 is a very stable energy. 4 legs on a chair, 4 legs on a table, 4 wheels on a car. It's what keeps us grounded. It's what keeps us connected. It's what keeps us feeling stable. And I think the fact that we're getting that in a position where we've had a couple of Pentacles cards and we're in a month where, like Emily was saying, we've had a couple of weeks where there's not anything too wild, but going forward, we're going to need that energy. So this is a point where you really do. I think that's the main message from Spirit throughout these cards now that's coming through is you really do have to go back to what we were saying back in Capricorn. If we can think back to then, the main message was to actually look at what you have done, that it is your energy that created this, and really look at yourself objectively. I am good at this. Objectively, I do this well. Objectively, this is what makes me successful. You have to really, almost like in a whatever way resonates with you, take the time to do that. If it's affirmations, if it's making a list, if it's asking people around you, depending on your sign and what brings you that energy and that feeling of safety, really help build yourself up. And again, what Emily was saying, like building up other people too. The Emperor doesn't take other people down in order to be on top of them. He's already on 4 feet. He's already sitting in his throne. He knows who he is. He doesn't have to tear everyone else down in order to feel like he is successful. And I think that's the point of it. If you see people trying to take you down or trying to undermine you, then you can just consider them irrelevant. Be like, then obviously that's not someone that is going to be supporting me. So I don't have to take in their input. And I think it goes back to that phrase, don't take advice from someone you wouldn't want to switch places with, right? If they're doing things that are shady or things that you, or even if they're just being mean, sometimes people can be friends with you and you can see it, but you just see that side of them where you're like, oh, that's what you're like at work. Like you almost seem like they're a different person. I think there's a lot of difficult energy coming, and I think we're going to see different sides of people because what Emily was saying, like we're all experiencing energy that we haven't before. Everyone's nervous systems are out of whack. Everyone is going to be reacting differently to that. And if you're able to stay in that stable energy of I have consistent knowledge and consistent proof that I'm doing something right, so I'm going to keep moving forward with this, and I don't have to accept or invite any of that energy into my world. I can keep moving in this way. And maybe it's one of those people that you just gradually see less of. Maybe there's people that you're pulling in more because they're more aligned. And I think that's where having a few weeks of earth energy and proof helps you feel more solid, makes you feel more in your body, makes you feel more confident. And then moving into the times where we're going to be feeling a lot more fluctuation happening around us, we can still be certain. If I have it on paper in front of me, this list that I made of the reasons why I am good at this and why I should keep going, I think we're going to need to hold on to that energy as we move forward. But it is, I think, really interesting for us to have this much earth energy and very positive earth energy coming forward at a time like this.
I do find it interesting now that Uranus is out of Taurus and we've struggled to kind of have that foundation to believe or trust or even grow something and have it stick around. That now that it's been like deeply plowed, it does feel like what we're planting this time might actually stick. And so I wonder if that's where some of this earth energy is coming from. Just something that popped in while you're talking. I think it's fascinating. We started on the 8th with the third quarter moon in Pisces. Remember that first quarter was in Leo. So this one is, I wrote the word, just put your phone down. Seriously. Because there's so much digital noise and the Pisces moon just really wants your presence, wants you to stay in the moment. It's easy to disassociate, but I do think that there's going to be these moments of aha where the solution is right under your nose. And if you are disassociating or looking to those old ways of nervous system regulation, you're going to miss it. This is a great opportunity to manifest. I just think this is a really important window. to think about what it is you're going after. And so much of this energy is, do you actually know what you think? Or are you just repeating what you've been told by someone your whole life? And if you are manifesting now a different future and you're changing your mind about those things that you're willing to put the work in on, don't be surprised if out of the blue somebody messages you and is like, hey, I was thinking of you for this project. But be careful because that intuition and exhaustion can kind of get a little blurry right now with so much energy, and particularly Saturn still hanging out in Aries. So just take it easy on that Pisces moon. On the 9th, we have Venus, right? It's in Cancer and now it's meeting up with Jupiter. So they're conjunct right with each other in Cancer. I love this because to me it feels like I what I want it to feel like is a global group hug. Um, I think the vibes are going to be really, really good for sharing community love, for seeing the bigger picture, seeing how important your inner circle is, but even bigger than that, like how can we spread any of the abundance that maybe we're experiencing in our own individual world? How can we share that? Share, and it doesn't have to be resources. It can be wisdom, it can be time, it can be whatever you've got, but just trust your gut on where it needs to go. Because I think it's going to be really easy to get distracted or caught up in the little details in our own self-pity or the moments of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I don't know what's going on or feeling stuck. All of those things can be easy to get in that. But if you can send your best friend, I was thinking of you, and who knows what's happening on the other end, to receive that in return. Oh, that meant a lot today. That changes the entire energy in an instant. So something to keep in mind, I think, around that first week of June window, June 9th, June 10th. On the 10th, we have Mercury square to Saturn. Now, Mercury moves really fast, but it's in sensitive Cancer and it's squaring off with Saturn, which is back in Aries. That's just really blunt. Like it doesn't care about your feelings. It's just going to tell you this is the way it is. So it can be a recipe for really defensive vibes. I can't believe you said that to me. And then all of a sudden you're like researching, well, who the hell do they think they are? And why did they say this? And then you've deep dove into their Facebook for the last 20 years. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just because something feels like a personal attack doesn't mean it is. And we are also learning right now that Gemini words can be something that's curious. It doesn't have to be your whole identity and your whole belief moving forward. You are getting rid of that. So take away the knee-jerk reaction. Get out of the one-way ticket to Drama Town and the next Housewives episode. We're tired of it. We're just done with that energy. So don't be stubborn on principle alone. And really, I would say honor yourself enough to wait for the right time and the right mood before you say something. Cancer wants to do it very nurturingly, where Saturn is like, oh, I don't care. You just woke up. Here's what I really think about it. So watch that push-pull energy within yourself and within your loved ones.
I feel like that's always a good warning before we even get into Cancer season. It's like a little preview of let's just remember some people take things very personally. So just take a moment, take a breath. For June 14th to 20th, for the end of Gemini season, we have another Pentacles card, believe it or not. It's another 4, which I find particularly interesting because it's the 4 of Pentacles. So this card kind of leans more on the ability to be swayed. So it still has this 4. So you're still very stable, but I feel like it's more the beliefs around it that sometimes it's hard to stay in that belief that you are secure, you are safe, you have what you need. Sometimes scarcity can come up with this where you're feeling like, okay, I don't trust this. Even though just for the last 3 weeks, I've had positive things happening and I've been feeling confident. Now all of a sudden it's like, how long can this last? And do I have enough? And do I need to stop buying food? Like you start really questioning yourself. And I think that is natural. It does happen. But also at the same time, we have had this reminder throughout the whole season to trust that whatever is coming to you personally is different from what everyone else is experiencing. So trying not to mix yourself into what people around you are doing. And it's funny, I had this image come to my mind for the last couple of weeks that you were describing, Emily, of seeing what other people are doing and that energy affecting you. And I started laughing because At one point when you said maybe you're just watering dirt, the image that came to mind was I could see that it sort of goes back to seeing everyone's houses the same and not fitting in or whatever. And just imagining this neighborhood with everyone having the same lawn, the same garden setup, and you are brand new to the area. You are not that kind of person, but you're just there. And then you just start copying what everyone's doing. So if everyone's out watering their garden, you're out there watering, but you didn't plant anything. And then you're confused as to why nothing's growing when everyone else has a full garden. So yeah, maybe people around you are having success with a certain pattern or a certain way of moving or a certain type of action, but that doesn't mean it's the same for you. If you are just kind of jumping in from thing to thing, maybe this is maybe the shadowy side of Gemini where it's like, oh, I see you're doing this. Now I'm going to do this. But I think sometimes we have to keep in mind that what looks like an instant thing for someone else having success, they've probably had layers and layers and layers of work moving towards that. And then keep in mind that people are probably seeing you the same way. They see you doing something with ease, something that comes naturally to you, something that you've been putting a lot of time and years into. And I think that's something that the Four of Pentacles is kind of bringing to the surface. Like allowing yourself to feel that baseline sense of security, even if things aren't perfect and it's not maybe at your peak of where you want to be going. You're not quite at that 10 of Pentacles yet. But keeping in mind, everything takes time, everything takes work. And as long as you're still doing the things that brought you success, all those things you listed, you thought about, that you realized you were doing well, then there's no reason why it would all of a sudden just disappear. You have those four posts. You've got that solid energy 2 weeks in a row now. So I think maybe we're going to need this reminder at this point. Maybe things will be fluctuating a lot. I don't know if it'll be oil prices or the stock market or what it will be at that point. That is now, as much as we would say maybe in the past, that's only a few weeks from now, that is ages at this point. So, regardless of what's happening around you, just keeping that footing for yourself, not putting blinders on. We do need to be aware of what's happening, but just knowing that just because one person is being affected a certain way or the people around you all seem to be panicking, if you're doing fine, then trust that you're probably doing fine. I think if we just allow ourselves to have that moment to say, I do have enough, maybe it is a time to save. Maybe it is a time where we're going to be cautious and not be putting money out on a brand new venture we just thought of. Maybe we're not going to use that side of the Gemini energy, but I think it's okay to trust that you're doing okay and that you can keep moving forward. And I don't think it's a time to spiral and start going backwards to old patterns. I think we have to trust that we are the new version of ourselves. Again, our nervous systems may not agree. Our nervous systems may want us to go back to the regular thing that we were doing for a long time, but keep all of that proof that you've been collecting this month and bring that with you into the next season, into the solstice, into that energy of the high summer, and allow that light, the sun at its peak, allow that to be illuminating all of the things that you have created up to this point. And then keeping in mind that that energy will probably carry us for a little bit when things get a little bit wild. There's a reason I think we're getting so much earth now because I'm terrified to see what's going to come during Cancer season. But I think there's a reason that we're being shown this is the time to map things out, reassure yourself, really put it on paper so you have something to look at. I think it feels like very much we're doing the 6-month check in from Capricorn. I think that's why some of the themes are similar right now. We're almost in Cancer season, the opposite sign. We had a lot of fire energy for the last few months. We had our chariot and the magician and a whole bunch of energy that was telling us like, okay, things are going to be fast. They're going to be good. They're going to be moving. But I think the fact that for June, we had the 9 of Wands, it's still fire energy, but it's that hang on a second. We're almost there. Keep moving forward. And I think that's coming in with this earth energy of keep doing the things. It is leading you somewhere. Just you're gonna have to hold on a little bit longer, but you're on the way there. It's so close.
I love the visualization you were talking about with the little house, and I immediately thought of Edward Scissorhands. And I think truly the universe is like, be more like Edward. Like the more Aquarius you can be, the better. We don't want you to all look and act identical. And funny enough, I actually missed a day from the 7th through the 13th, but I think it was for a reason. The 13th, Venus moves into Leo, and it's there June 13th through July 9th. And July is when we have most of our fire energy coming up. So Venus in Leo, it really wants you to lean into celebration, lean into fun, lean into being admired for cutting your hedge differently or planting plants that nobody else planted. But can you do it without needing someone else to notice? That would be my question for some of that energy. Does it matter if nobody notices that you planted peppers and everybody else had tomatoes? It might matter later, but it doesn't at the moment when all the plants look the same. The 14th, we have the new moon in Gemini, and this one is a super moon. That just means it's closer to us in proximity. And so it can, for those of us that are energetically sensitive, feel a little extra and over the top. It is, of course, our only Gemini new moon of the year. And I think this is going to be a really good opportunity to just take a time out and actually stop talking for a minute, to really get back into your own creativity, to pay attention to your intuition and those messages that are coming up internally. Because I think we've spent so much time really stressing about it. Do I have the timing right? Do I have the timing right? Is this the divine moment? Is this when it's finally going to happen? And I think this is yet again, and I hate to say it to any other earth signs that are listening, stop forcing and start surrendering and lean even harder into faith. And I think the whispers can get loud during this window here. And I was even looking at the human design gate for this particular moon, and it's really about I trust the timing and allow my truth to emerge with grace. Not super fun, but very Four of Pentacles. On the 16th, we have Venus trine Neptune. This is a really beautiful energy. Of course, anytime we have a trine, it just means that they're getting along. They're bringing in luck and opportunities in some way. So Venus in Leo, Neptune in Aries, that's a lot of fire. Let your imagination off leash. Let it run. Let it go all the way in. But don't act immediately on that super hot impulse, because you might, again, feel like this is the thing. This is 100%. This is what I'm doing. But it's like maybe you just need to detect what lights you up. Maybe you've had this window where nothing felt exciting or everything felt exciting. And maybe this will be the moment that you finally feel in your body a little bit again, that reassurance from your nervous system that this is actually the thing I want to go for. I would also just say watch out for smooth talkers, salesmen trying to sell you delusions. And I mean that, I think, more on a global scale. What are they? Oh, it'll be fine. It's only going to last 2 more days. Yeah, those types of ridiculous things. On the 17th, we have Venus. Again, there's a lot of Venus energy this week, opposite Pluto. Pluto's in Aquarius. Venus is in Leo. This is about like betrayal, trust issues, shady behavior. Pluto in Aquarius is making us get in touch with the things we know that we didn't know, but we know them, if that makes sense. And Leo's like, well, I'm just here for a good time, not a long time. I would just say if it looked like a red flag, it probably is a red flag. If there's smoke, there's fire. That is the energy that comes off with that. If something starts feeling uncomfortable or it's more complicated than you wanted, like maybe get the whole story, but you don't have to buy into it all at once. And then this is a big one. This is where we leave off right before we enter Cancer season. Chiron is going to enter Taurus, and this is for a preview. So from June 19th to September 17th, Chiron is walking out of Aries, where it has been about 7 years, and moving into Taurus. And poor Taurus, like we just got done with Uranus. I get it. But the wounded healer moving in here, this is the first time since 1983. The real big, massive transit kicks off next spring. Look for baggage around money, security, self-worth, especially if you're still living by traditional values and rules. We are, I think, at a pivotal point where we're recognizing, do I need 3 car garages and a gajillion toys and all of the things, or am I just happy in my garden? Do I need to prove to my family that I am an attorney and a doctor and I do all the fancy things? Or do I really just want to go paint? This is again, where I think so much of this Pentacles energy is going to come into play, because you're going to have to get to the bottom of what your values really are. And we're in the middle of changing our ideas and our beliefs. So likely the answer is no. And it's going to be a time where the collective is going to have to update and make whatever your values are unapologetically yours. So, like I said, just pay attention to what surfaces now. It's probably not going to be the whole story, but it will, I feel, globally trigger probably the massive oil shortages. Suddenly, people can't go on the trips that they planned, or kids aren't in as many after school programs. Whatever that ideal picture was that you held for what your money did for you, it's probably not going to do that anymore. Yeah, I do want to note, though, that the last time it started into Taurus in about 1976 through 83, Jimmy Carter was president here in the United States. He was, of course, the peanut farmer that tried to fix things after Nixon and so many other problems, but have led the way for Reagan and all of that disaster. But it also was impacting Taurus from 1926 to 1934. And both of these had some interesting things in common. Like when Carter was in, he expanded the national parks, and he also brokered the Camp David Accords between Israel and, I want to say, Egypt. And then also 26 to 34, right? This was the crash of the Roaring 20s, the stock market disaster. There was the Dust Bowl, the economic kind of devastation, drought, power struggles. There was also, ironically, a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment, and a lot of trade tariffs were enacted. So, yeah, the parallels are really eerie and actually right on schedule. And I think this is where we're going to have some big choices to make come July about how we're going to choose to move through this energy differently this time. Did we learn our lessons, or are we going to repeat it all once again?
That is a fascinating reflection to have, of looking at like where we've been in the past with this energy. And I think when I feel into it, I think it's similar to what we've been saying the last couple of years, where even though COVID was devastating to the way we were living before, there's a lot that came from that we are now feeling closer. It's like that global hug you were talking about. That energy, I think, is going to get stronger, because we're not able to ignore what's happening to each other anymore. And as much as, yes, we're seeing the extremes of the hate and whatnot that's coming through, we're also seeing how it's being squashed very quickly as well. So I think even if there were to be another economic similarity to the Dust Bowl, I have this, I don't know, this is just my energy and what's coming through. But I do feel like that sense of activism and social justice that's coming in from the Aquarius influences, meeting up with that. I think we're in a really unique place where I think people will move quickly to force support for anybody who's struggling. There was a university I just saw, I don't know if it was the dean or if it was someone just high up in the university's board or whatnot, but combined with their wife and money that was left from their mother, they decided to pay off any student loans that were taken for the last year for the graduating class. Anything they took for their final year, they just paid it off. And the discussion that started was, imagine being a billionaire and not wanting to be known for stuff like that. And so I think there's almost this collective pressure, because the worse economics get, the less shits people give about what they're doing to push back. And I think it will be very interesting to see what happens if we get to a point where billionaires are thriving and most of the people in general are, most of the population is not. I think there's going to be forced shifts that happen to ensure that changes and that is a better redistribution of wealth. And it's interesting how that one example of somebody doing that just sparked so much in the way of conversation and ideas. And I think it's that sort of energy where if people take that and then apply it and force it, we've done that. We've seen that over the last few years where, even if it's not something that changes the entire way the world works, there have been things that have changed because of people coming together when they all agree on something and just show up. So I'm really interested to see how this shifts when it is based on finances and security and that connection to earth as well. I think there's going to be certain issues that people genuinely feel like they have to physically move their body and go and speak and cause change to happen. I think it's always interesting when it's one case in one town can spark this huge outrage across a country. So I think that's going to be something to watch, is paying attention to what the triggers are to have these big movements come. I think there's going to be a lot of that in the next couple of years.
And that to me is that Uranus and Gemini energy of like sudden insight, sudden electrical change in some way. And even it's, they used to be able to suppress information, and they're trying so hard to continue that by consolidating networks and sources of information. And yet it's still getting out there. We still know we're still getting news from other countries that don't have the suppression. And so it's a little like Pandora's box. I think we're going to reach a moment where it's out and there's no denying it anymore. And I also think, and we'll probably talk about this, I'd like to talk about it a little bit more when we do Inviting Shadow, but there have been now 13 scientists just in the United States that have said, I'm not suicidal, and then within a couple of days die of supposed suicide. And most of them have been involved in some way or another with free energy and moving away from fossil fuels and resources that we don't need anymore. Again, collective value change. So, yeah, that really paints the picture and sets up on a very Leo type stage for an explosive July, which is exactly what the planets are saying. July is a pivotal point. There are some moments between now when we're recording and the beginning of Cancer season where things come out and there's no going back. And I'm hopeful that's the moment where, yeah, it's like we can't ignore the elephant in the room. Who knows? There's endless opportunities at every corner. But I do really like the amount of earth energy that this brought through. And it harkens back to Cards and Cosmos at the beginning of the year when we did our collective poll together for like the whole year, and how many people had really great cards through the first half of the year. We're fine. We keep doing each month. We're like, let's pull one for the global and one for us. And it's, yeah, it's going to be okay. So I really am leaning into that energy. And then it is an emotional fall, but I think it's the nervous system like collapse because we're going to get through so much that by the fall, we're just comatose. Put me in a bed and bring me soup and we'll call it good. Because we're going to have a lot of work after this is all deconstructed. This is just the beginning. But I feel more optimistic about June than when we started recording. So thank you for pulling cards as always.
Yeah, I'm feeling really optimistic as well. And I think as we're sharing now just these reflections at the end, I think there's a huge connection with Gemini and education, obviously Sagittarius as well. But one of the things I was thinking is when you were talking about us moving away from fossil fuels, I went to the University of Guelph and the students actually pushed for the school to divest all of its funds away from fossil fuels, and they did. So if we think about an educational institution, I mean, there's a lot of funding that's being taken away from education, but I think students, if we think back every generation, it's always the young people that are willing to stand up and protest and force change. And I find it really interesting to see just even again small examples where the first group that does it and then how that sparks change. I think it's going to be really interesting, and of course going to be also challenging for us to navigate the other side of it, but I'm really feeling hopeful. I'm feeling hopeful that things are going to be moving, and again, moving in general. I think we just need something to change. But I think moving in the direction that when we were all brainstorming, talking about what is the age of Aquarius going to look like what is it going to look like on the other side of this grouping of years? What is the other side of that going to look like? I think the more we see these hopeful pieces of change happening, the more we can start to say, okay, those things we envisioned actually could happen if enough people are in agreement that that's the direction we're going. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think having so much earth, like we were saying, I think that is always a good thing. I think it always resets us in a way where we're able to navigate whatever chaos is coming next. As much as I'm not necessarily excited, I also am one where I've said multiple times that I love a tower moment if it means things are going to change, if it means things are going to move, and we can just be on the other side of things faster. So I'm curious and frightened as usual. It's like our opposite of the cautiously optimistic. It's like I'm curious and frightened, but still cautiously optimistic.
So yeah, could go on and on. Do you have anything to share this month coming up for you in terms of art shows and all the exciting things?
I have so many things happening locally that I am now in crunch mode, as per usual, where I have only a couple weeks to do many, many things. But yeah, it's a great time. I'm going to be part of the Huntsville Art Crawl again, which is really fun. It's the whole summer. Anybody coming to visit the downtown can visit the local businesses and see an artist's work at the same time. They have passports that you can pick up to get stamps for all of the different locations you visit. It's a really cool thing. I'm going to have a solo show at the Huntsville Public Library during that time. July and August I will have that up, I believe. But yeah, I feel like it's going to be a really interesting season for me getting all my work out there. And then as per usual, a little bit fewer options for booking readings, but I am going to do a solstice card pull. I feel like everyone enjoys getting their little PDFs with the few cards that I pull. I always do a different spread depending on whatever the season is. So I'll have a new spread that I'll come up with for that and pull a few cards, give you your main messages from it. And then I'm going to also share on Instagram, I think this time, the themes that come up because I only ever see it because I'm behind the scenes, but it is always interesting to see what the common messages are, the cards that come up in more than one person's spreads. And I feel like that'll be interesting for anybody who receives a reading to also see that other people are in it with them. So I think that may be a really fun way of connecting with the energy right before July, right before all of this energy happens. I think it'll be a good check-in point, and I think it's always nice to do something to celebrate solstice. So that's all I've got in my newsletter on the first or second, the usual, within a day or two, typical my Andrea energy. But yeah, I'm going to include links to any of the places my work is for anybody local, and then links to book the solstice card spread and any other things that I come up with in the meantime, too. What about you, Emily?
Oh, that sounds exciting. I will definitely be booking a read, and I love to know what other people get because otherwise you're out there on your own island, and I love to see the collective message. So thumbs up for that option. Let's see. I have, of course, got things happening over in Spirit Social. I'm doing my Gemini talk coming up next week. Of course, all of them are also banked, the ones that I've done so far. So once a month, those are there. I just did a big Akashic demonstration around the fear of failure, where I channeled Metatron as well as Mother Earth, interestingly enough, who had some beautiful messages around working with and healing the fear of failure. So definitely check those out over on Spirit Social if you're a member. Um, just some other pieces that I think will help support you all through this. Of course, Cars and Cosmos is always the first Saturday of each month. And I am now also offering a secret side option. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you can let me pull your cards for you. And so I will send you part of the recording where I share about the month's astrology and overarching themes, a deeper version than what we even do here on the podcast. And then I'll pull the cards based on the pull that I designed for the month and give you messages and share again what the collective themes are and some other things that come up with that. So that's available if you subscribe to the newsletter. Once Upon Your Soul, I think would be really healing to walk through right now, particularly if you are feeling that pull from the liminal and not sure what to let go of and what you believe and what to step into next. So that is on special on my website in the store. And then we're going to get ready to record Inviting Shadow in just a couple of weeks. So I'm deep diving into the second half of 2026 and looking at how things have already unfolded, how those will work and present themselves moving forward. So excited. This is always our busy crunch time, just like it is in December. And I can't believe we're already halfway through. So yeah, what's happening over here?
That sounds very exciting. And yes, I would highly recommend both the spread that Emily's doing to let me pull your cards, but also the Once Upon Your Soul. I think she's exactly dead on. I think that's a really good energy to have for this point in time, especially this halfway point, to be like, okay, who am I? Where am I? Sort of, reset for the energy. But yeah, I think Inviting Shadow is going to be very interesting this year. It always is. I love doing those episodes. And I think our decision to do 6 months instead of the whole year, I mean, we're completely different people than we were 6 months ago. So I feel like even 1 month at a time, we're brand new at this, being like, am I new? What do we say? What's happening every time we record? So I think 6 months is about all we could handle ourselves, even preparing at one time or another. But I am feeling a definite shift from the first 6 months into the ending of the year, but hopeful. I feel, as per usual, I'm in it for the tower moments. I'm in it for the change. Bring on all the cards people are afraid to get. I'm like, bring it on. I'll take the death card and the tower together. Bring them together and let's just get this over with. So I don't think I'm feeling that kind of intensity, but I'm not feeling it. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, we're looking forward to seeing how this unfolds, and we'll see you at solstice.
Sounds wonderful. I wish you guys could have seen the look I gave Andrea when she said she's not feeling death and tower. And I was like, but maybe I am. Take it easy, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.